Hi everybody, how is your day going, guys? Let's join to the today live session, guys. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. And lots of love and respect for your joining. Please, guys, you will be write the name of the every person in the screen. Every single person to write your name in the chat, guys. I wanna love to I wanna love to see you here, guys. Less you should be write your name in the chat, guys. Hurry up, everybody. Hurry up. Hurry up, guys. Let's write the name of the every person in the screen. Hurry up, guys. I'm waiting for that. So many people have to join the stream. Then we will be start writing the name of the every person in the screen. Hurry up, guys. Right now two people is watching right now, guys. Let's increase the watching, double tapping the screen and write your name on the chat, guys. Yeah, you will be write your name in the chat, guys. Hurry up. Right now the 9 people has been connected with us, guys. I wanted to say every people, please write your name in the chat, increase the likes and have to spread the love on the live session, guys. Hurry up. Who wanna going to writing the name, who wanna going to writing the first name in the screen? Everybody, please, you wanna have to write your name, make the likes, and also you should have to write your name in the chat. 12 people is watching. Please, every person to write your name in the chat, guys. If you want to have to love, if you wanted to support, you should send me the finger hearts, the laughing disco. Please, guys, please, everybody have to write your name in the chat, guys. Hurry up. It's a name writing live session. Hurry up, guys. Every respected member to write your name in the chat, guys. Every respected member to write your name in the chat. Sana, hi pretty Sana. How are you, pretty Sana? Thank you so much, dear Sana. Every person, please write your name in the chat, guys. Hurry up, guys. Lily, how are you, dear Lily? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Lily. Hi, my name is April. Hi, April. How are you, dear April? Thank you so much for your joining, respected April. Please, everybody, to write your name in the chat. Hefson, how are you, dear Hefson? How are you, Hefson? Please, guys, you wanna write the name in the chat. Limi, how are you, Limi? How are you, dear Limi? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Limi. Larry, how are you, dear Larry? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Larry. How are you, Larry? Ariane, how are you, dear Ariane? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Ariane. Please, guys, you wanna write your name in the chat. Thank you so much for watching from India. Please, every person to write your name in the chat, guys. And I have wanna to say every viewers, please, you also to show your dia, how are you, dia? You wanna have to write your name and also write your country name to make sure where are you from watching my screen. Riley, how are you, dear Riley? Thank you so much for your joining. Please, everybody, every respected member, please, you write your name in the chat, guys. Larry, how are you, dear Larry? If you wanna can support, you should do the super chat on my live session. You can send me the laughing disco for my support. Angel, how are you, dear Angel? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Angel. How are you, Angel? Please everybody to write your name. Adrian, how are you, dear Adrian? How are you, Adrian? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Adrian. If you wanna can support guys, Sumaya, how are you, Sumaya? Yeah, if you wanna can support, you should send the laughing disco or fingers. Cass, how are you, dear Cass? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Cass. Thank you for watching, Cass. Hazel, how are you, dear Hazel? How are you, respected Hazel? Thank you so much, guys. If someone has to do the super chat, send the laughing disco or finger hearts. Your name has been written on the board, guys. Yeah, on the whiteboard. Maxi, how are you, dear Maxi? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Maxi. Thank you for joining, guys. 21 people is watching, guys. Messi, how are you, Messi? How are you, dear Messi? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Messi. Larry, how are you, dear Larry? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Larry. Having a lot of love and respect for your joining. Hector, how are you, dear Hector? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Hector. Please, guys, you wanna increase the likes and also have to write your name, guys. Hazel, how are you, dear Hazel? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Hazel. Hurry up, guys. Nisara, how are you, dear Nisara? How are you, Nisara? Please, guys, you wanted to write your name in the chat, every person. Or Shifa, how are you, dear Shifa? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Shifa. How are you, Shifa? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Shifa. Aris, how are you, dear Aris? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Aris. How are you, dear Harris? Maxi, how are you, dear Maxi? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Maxi. Hurry up, guys. Nico, how are you, dear Nico? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Nico. Aisa, how are you, dear Aisa? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Aisa. Please, guys, you wanna write your name in the chat, guys. Megan, how are you, dear Megan? Thank you so much for your joining. Potter, how are you, dear Potter? How are you, Potter? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Potter. How are you, Potter? Please, guys, to write your name in the chat. Amara, how are you, dear Amara? How are you, respected Amara? Rabisa, how are you, dear Rabisa? How are you, Rabisa? Larry, how are you, dear Larry? Thank you so much for your joining. Please, everybody, to write your name in the chat. Idris, how are you, dear Idris? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Idris. Thank you. Caste, how are you, Caste? How are you, dear Caste? Please, everybody, if you wanna can support, you should send the laughing disco. Bellor, how are you, Bellor? How are you, dear Bellor? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Bellor. Arman, how are you, dear Arman? How are you, dear Arman? How are you, Arman? Thank you for joining. Falupa, how are you, dear Falupa? Hurry up, guys. If you wanna can support, guys. If you wanna can support, you should send me the laughing disco, guys. Yeah, if you and thank you. Thank you, Arman, for joining my stream. I want to also thanks for the every viewers. Those have to join my stream. Those have to support on my channel. Thank you, guys. Mia, how are you, dear Mia? Thank you so much for your joining. Ava, how are you, dear Ava? How are you, Ava? Thank you so much for your joining. Nina, how are you, dear Nina? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Nina. Please, guys, you wanna write the name of the every person in the screen. I have a lot of love and respect for you joining, guys. Jacob, how are you, Jacob? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Jacob. Humble, how are you, dear Humble? Thank you so much for your joining. Hurry up, guys. Ava, how are you, Ava? Eric, how are you, dear Eric? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Eric. Robisa, how are you, dear Robisa? How are you, Robisa? Please, guys, every respected member have to write your name in the chat, guys. You wanna have to increase the likes, guys. Azman, how are you, dear Azman? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Azman. Stella, how are you, dear Stella? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Stella. Hyunjin, how are you, Hyunjin? Thank you so much for your joining. Please, guys, to write your name in the chat, everybody. You wanna increase the likes, guys. Peggy, how are you, dear Peggy? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Peggy. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat. Amara, how are you, dear Amara? Puerto Rico, hey Puerto Rico, how are you, Pretica? How are you, Pretica? Thank you for joining, dear Pretica. How are you, dear Pretica? Lara, how are you, dear Lara? How are you, dear Lara? How are you, Lara? Abby, how are you, dear Abby? How are you, pretty dear Abby? Daisy, how are you, dear Daisy? Thank you so much for joining, dear Daisy. How are you, respected Daisy? Kalara, how are you, dear Kalara? Thank you for joining, dear Kalara. Alice, how are you, dear Alice? How are you, Alice? How are you, dear Alice? Ruby, how are you, dear Ruby? Thank you for joining, dear Ruby. How are you, dear Ruby? Sophie, how are you, dear Sophie? Thank you for joining, dear Sophie. How are you, respected Sophie? Mila, how are you, dear Mila? Thank you for joining, dear Mila. How are you, Nora? How are you, dear Nora? Thank you for joining, respected Nora. Mavi, oh, how are you, dear Mavi? How are you, Mavi? Thank you for joining, respected Mavi. Aiden, how are you, dear Aiden? Thank you for joining, dear Aiden. How are you, respected Aiden? Zoe, how are you, dear Zoe? Thank you for joining, respected Zoe. Lala, how are you, dear Lala? Thank you for joining, respected Lala. Tia, how are you, dear Tia? Thank you for joining, respected Tia. Please, everybody, to write your name in the chat. Corey, how are you, dear Corey? Thank you for joining. Poppy, how are you, dear Poppy? How are you, respected Poppy? Please, everybody, to write your name in the chat, guys. Warren, how are you, dear Warren? Thank you for joining, respected Warren. Please, guys, increase the likes, guys. How are you, dear Warren? How are you, Warren? Lala, how are you, dear Lala? Thank you for joining, respected Lala. Faye, how are you, dear Faye? Thank you for joining, respected Faye. Sana, how are you, dear Sana? Thank you for joining, respected Sana. And Olivia, how are you, dear Olivia? How are you, dear Olivia? How are you, respected Olivia? Thank you for joining, dear Olivia. Hurry up, guys. Aiden, how are you? Ala, how are you, dear Ala? Thank you so much for joining, respected Ala. Afia, how are you, respected Afia? How are you, dear Afia? Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat. Bradley, how are you, dear Bradley? How are you, respected Bradley? Massey, how are you, respected Massey? Thank you for joining, dear Massey. Ada, how are you, dear Ada? Thank you for joining, dear Ada. Assam, how are you, dear Assam? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Esme. Nina, how are you, dear Nina? Thank you for joining, dear Nina. How are you, pretty Nina? Tessa, how are you, dear Tessa? How are you, Tessa? Thank you for joining, dear Tessa. Lala, how are you, dear Lala? Thank you so much for your joining. Jan, how are you, dear Jan? Thank you for joining, respected Jan. How are you, dear Jan? I'll write your name, dear Jan. Vera, how are you, dear Vera? Thank you for joining, dear Vera. Mabel, how are you, dear Mabel? Thank you so much for joining, respected Mabel. Remy, how are you, dear Remy? Thank you for joining, dear Remy. Colio, how are you, dear Colio? Thank you for joining, dear Colio. Jayuno, how are you, dear Jayuno? Aris, how are you, dear Aris? Thank you for joining, dear Aris. Opal, how are you, dear Opal? Thank you for joining, respected Opal. Kaya, how are you, Kaya? Allah, how are you? Zoya, how are you, dear Zoya? Alina, how are you, dear Alina? Thank you for joining, dear Alina. Anaya, how are you, dear Anaya? Mira, how are you, dear Mira? Rahia, how are you, dear Rahia? Muhammad, how are you, dear Muhammad? Livia, how are you, dear Livia? Nadia, how are you, dear Nadia? Aisha, how are you, pretty Aisha? Zara, how are you, dear Zara? Nia, how are you, Nia? Ayana, how are you, Ayana? Alice, how are you, dear Alice? Adley, how are you, Adley? Juliet, how are you, Juliet? How are you, Juliet? Jana, how are you, Jana? How are you, respected Jana? How are you, Jana? Blair, how are you, Blair? DJ Oku, why DJ Okwe, how are you, DJ Okwe? Peggy, how are you, Peggy? Riley, how are you, dear Riley? Emery, how are you, dear Emery? Avery, how are you, Avery? Everly, how are you, Everly? Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Rowan, how are you, Rowan? Harper, how are you, dear Harper? Taylor, how are you, Taylor? Patton, how are you, Patton? Hurry up, guys. Skylar, how are you, dear Skylar? Aspen, how are you, Aspen? River, how are you, River? Okayan, how are you, Okayan? Color, how are you, dear Color? Scarlet, how are you, Scarlet? Any person can send the laughing disco, guys. Here is any superhero to send a laughing disco for my support, guys. Rose, how are you, Rose? Ruby, how are you, dear Ruby? Lily, how are you, Lily? Dahlia, how are you, Dahlia? Daisy, how are you, Daisy? Holly, how are you, Holly? Lowy, how are you, Lowy? Arabella, how are you, Arabella? Alana, how are you, Alana? Amelia. Lydia, how are you, Lydia? Every person do like and subscribe to the channel, guys. Danny, how are you, dear Danny? Thank you for joining, Danny. How are you, Danny? Where are you from watching, Danny? Danny, can you send a one laughing disco for our support, my dear Danny? And lots of love and respect for you, Johnny.